He seems to have just this continual depth of energy.
You know, he's very determined. He's ruthlessly focused. If he can help, he will.
David is a change agent. He has that range of experiences, I think, and that appreciation for what's going on around the world.
There is a system accountability that I believe he's pushing.
He's not afraid to express what's needed.
Dad doesn't play it safe. He rocks the boat.
My name is David Devine, and here I am. My name is Professor David Devine, and I'm essentially a consultant, a business consultant, and I'm primarily focused on exploring voices that are unacknowledged and unheard.
He is someone whose work in community and along with community people has been instrumental in disrupting these systemic harms.
These are some of the companies that I have worked in recently over the last couple of years. Nova Scotia Health, I'm still with them, been there for 11 months.
Okay. He's pushing for us to have a say in how, Black health, primary health care is developed here in Nova Scotia. A lot of people don't accept minorities or people of different colors to utilize the healthcare system. That was the biggest reason why the Brotherhood was established, because a lot of black men in Nova Scotia, they found, will access the system because of racism.
This was, remember, the major conference that we had recently organised by Halifax Chamber of Commerce, and I was one of the keynote speakers there.
Chamber of Commerce is a membership-based organization. We have almost 2,000 members in the greater Halifax area that represent almost 80,000 employees. David came to us in 2020 and said we'd like to do a project that ultimately we named Amplifying Voices. And that project was an opportunity for us to speak to people of color around Halifax and to employers, and to understand from employers how they worked with, hired, trained persons of color. So it was a really robust study to better inform ourselves at the Chamber on what we needed to do, and to help our employers understand what they need to do to make sure that people have the right opportunities for advancement.
That is valuable work. That is needed work. And his insights and guidance and collaboration, and that is really important.
I had an amazing upbringing and childhood. Even though Dad was very busy and constantly kind of on the go, we had a very close relationship, and he spent a lot of time developing a very special bond, and actually brought me into conversations well ahead of my time to actually, really appreciate about life. From the beginning, we were very aware that Dad was born in Dunfermline and was actually raised in an orphanage in Aberlour.
I was abandoned as a child at 3 months by my single-parent white mother, who had formed a relationship with a black Air Forceman who was stationed in Scotland. My mother was then left with a black baby, and she was white. And at that time in Scotland, there was a major taboo against the mixing of races. There was a huge amount of racism. Her own parents were absolutely scandalized. 3 months, I'm in the care of the local authority. Eventually, at 18 months, I was admitted to Aberlour Orphanage, and there I stayed till the age of 11.
There was lots of parts of his childhood that he still reflects back onto very fondly. But from a larger perspective, it was a very sad upbringing, being one of few black children in an environment where you couldn't really see yourself or didn't really identify others that looked like you.
At the age of 11, I was one of the children that was moved out of Abelar Orphanage to go into our foster home hundreds of miles south in a mining village called Lone Head, and I was placed with a very elderly couple. I was never really happy in that foster home, and I was absolutely determined to get out.
Dad was actually very ahead of his time, and he actually used education as a way to escape his surroundings.
I worked enormously hard. I really wanted to go far in life, and I was absolutely determined to succeed.
But I believe in my heart that if he didn't have this start in life, he wouldn't have had the early successes, and he wouldn't have continued to have the drive and just the boldness to just go for it.
I then got into Glaswade High School, which was excellent. The teachers really devoted themselves to pulling out the best potential in each of their students. I had spent a number of vacations whilst at Glaswade High School working in Rosalind Lee Psychiatric Hospital. I absolutely loved it. I loved working with people.
He very quickly started to get involved in social work. He pushed through, got the grades that he needed to, and was able to pull resources together to go into Edinburgh University. And once Dad got into Edinburgh University, he was able to take off in terms of academically and professionally, but also socially.
I wanted to move from Edinburgh to areas in the country where I could see other people that looked like me, because I never saw people that looked like me, really.
I'm sure he had culture shock when he arrived in London. It was a very vibrant place.
There were so many differences amongst the people. It was absolutely fantastic.
For the first time, when Dad actually went into London, he actually felt more of himself.
David worked as a social worker in London for the next 5 years, and then proceeded to get a master's degree in public service management at Aston University.
I was invited by Hackney Council to come and give a major presentation. And in this lecture hall was my wife. And somehow we got to talking, and we exchanged telephone numbers.
I remember him saying to me, this is somewhere that I would be quite happy to spend the rest of my life.
And then off I was on the flight. Anne phoned me one evening, invited me out. She said that she'll pick me up at 9 o'clock. I said, well, that's rather late. But she said, oh, no, I'm inviting you to church. 9 o'clock in the morning is what I'm referring to. So off I go to church with her. We get to church and I meet her family. And they were very keen on meeting the potential partner of Anne. So it was a very important occasion. I went to have lunch with her family after church. We then went to the park. And I proposed to her on our first date. That was in January, and we got married in the August of the same year. And that's how it all went.
After hearing about his research on Black communities in the UK and other parts of the world, David was invited by Dalhousie University to be a keynote speaker at an international conference on Black men in Halifax.
So I gave my presentation and it was received very warmly. Several years went by. I was doing some work in Southeast Asia, and my wife was receiving calls from Canada about a job that she thought I'd applied for. It was Dalhousie University contacting me to invite me to apply for a position that had just become vacant, and that was a James Robinson Johnston Chair in Black Canadian Studies, a prestigious academic position.
The James R. Johnston Chair is an endowed research chair that focuses specifically on Black studies. It's really unique, actually. Dalhousie was the first university in Canada to even have a chair in Black studies.
He was so deeply interested in this opportunity that he actually unhitched himself from a potential career in the Members of Parliament in the UK. I remember him saying to me, this is somewhere that I would be quite happy to spend the rest of my life.
My wife didn't bat an eyelid. She met me at the airport with my suitcase, made me look respectable, and then off I was on the flight. And so in January 2004, I came to Halifax to live as the James Robinson Johnston Chair in Black Canadian Studies.
James R. Johnston was actually the first Black lawyer to go through the Dalhousie law program.
At the time that he was living, Blacks were not provided with opportunities to basically share in the general well-being of the wider society.
If you look back at what he was actually facing back then, it's actually unprecedented.
James Robinson Johnston broke the race barrier at the time, and okay, he was only one man, but he led the way to others to follow, and that's the key, and that's why he's celebrated.
A group of people got together to create the endowment.
And at that particular time, the position essentially was focused on Black people of African descent, primarily in Nova Scotia. It wasn't taken broader than that.
The experience of Black men inside Nova Scotia, it's not a singular journey.
There needs to be not only a national, the Canadian input, but also an international influence.
And so when he pulls this conference together and brings people from across the globe, it's like seeds have been planted, right, that end up growing and intervening and doing these things. That's the brilliance of like pulling people together like this.
From being here for 20 years now, I have started to see quite a lot of change, and a lot of that change is around empowerment, access to opportunities. Young men of Black origin in a variety of different professional occupations, continuously moving into different spaces, but also being able to take up the mantle from their forebearers to actually advocate for change that needs to be taken.
Individuals need to hear stories about individuals who break these barriers, because they need to have evidence that it can be done, because in so many instances they find it can't be.
We think about Rosa Parks and the fact that it created the Montgomery boycott, which lasted for a year.
In Viola Desmond's case, she epitomized not only bravery, but she created a degree of change which still reverberates to this particular day. We now have a $10 note with Viola Desmond's face on it, but it took 72 years. So change is very, very slow. It is incremental at times. There are other cases where it was fairly immediate. George Floyd's death brought in a cataclysmic reaction, which was unstoppable.
It was a tipping point. Enough was enough. And it was like a domino effect in the sense of, region by region, city by city, country by country.
It was seen on social media. It circled the world.
and there was absolute outrage.
It was clear that this is not going to be something that's going to quickly go away.
And the outrage was also laced with guilt, in the sense that individuals knew that such things do occur, but they were removed from it. But in social media, you are there. You're part of the viewership, and you can't discount your involvement in it because you're there.
They saw the terrible, terrible images, and it touched them in a way that in the past, I don't think they fully understood what Black people were saying.
Power of social media and the power of information and the power of individuals being able to have a voice. And it actually has changed the ecosystem. What I really was humbled by was the humility and the human connection from people from a variety of backgrounds and countries to generally come together and start to create real change.
It was a moment that moved like just a wave across the globe. And I'm hoping it changed people for the better.
Businesses change, businesses need to adapt, businesses need to improve.
And that's what's led me very, very much into some of the work that I currently deal with. What happens in one part of Canada, one part of the world relating to a Black person has an impact on us all as Black people.
As a young Black male consistently getting stopped and searched, it was just a way of operating during my teens.
Regardless of what we do, we could be killed by police. And then we see the studies. In Toronto, Black people are 20 times more likely to be harmed by police.
Nova Scotia, there was a report in 2019 that actually showed that individuals of color were 6 times more likely to get stopped and searched.
I think people started to really, I hope, understand the reality of that data, what it meant to be under surveillance from the time you leave your house with no guarantee that you would get home safely or alive or unharmed.
Every jurisdiction is battling their own sorts of institutional issues, and globally there's work to be done.
And that's what's led me very, very much into some of the work that I currently deal with.
With the goal of reflecting the continuously increasing diversity of Nova Scotia, David set out on this new journey, working with organizations to look at key aspects such as operations, policies, recruitment, and retention, until one winter morning when suddenly everything changed.
In March 2007, on a snowy morning, Dad was walking to the gym and was hit by a car head-on. It was a very traumatic experience. He wasn't supposed to live.
I was at death's door and my family had to move into the hospital because the surgeons didn't know whether the following day I'd be alive or dead.
And that really changed everything for him and the family.
The Nova Scotian community supported my family, and I was out of circulation, didn't know the time of day for a couple of years after the accident. It was that serious.
I do believe that with Dad knowing he's had such a close calling, he really takes that level of gratitude into everything that he does, and he does really try and make his time count. With the work that he started to get into post-accident, it's even more focused on, can I bring my best self to this particular project? Is it going to make a difference?
He seems to have just this continual depth of energy. And maybe part of that is because he's continuing to do the work that he loves, the work that he's passionate about and committed to.
My father's role as a change maker now, as a 70-year-old man, I will believe is more important than it ever has been.
David's transcontinental upbringing, he has that range of experiences, I think, and that appreciation for what's going on around the world. And he's a great help in bringing that view to us in Nova Scotia.
So Footprint Lives Coaching, that has been his continuous dedication to consulting with individuals and organizations.
It is an organization about amplifying and acknowledging the voices of those unheard and unacknowledged.
He's very determined. He's ruthlessly focused on his priorities. And I've seen him have setback after setback, but he's just that guy who just keeps on coming back.
Well, he doesn't let go. David wants to move forward, and David recognizes where the issues are, and he's not afraid to tell you. But he also presents solutions.
Dad doesn't play it safe. He rocks the boat, and it can make people feel uncomfortable, but he's respected for not holding back and saying what needs to be said at the time.
He's not afraid to express what's needed, and he's making progress. People listening to him.
David was good enough to put us on the hook for many initiatives by saying at the end of the report, the chamber needs to do this and the chamber needs to do that. So we were very pleased to get a report where we could begin to take action right away.
There has been several companies who have generally put provisions in place to make sure that some of the inequalities that have continued to be overlooked are addressed.
I see some changes in Nova Scotia Health, more policies toward disrespectful workplace.
There is a system accountability that I believe he's pushing towards, because only in that accountability are we then able to see greater engagement with African Nova Scotian and Black communities and have better relationships with the various hospital systems in the province.
Businesses change, businesses need to adapt, businesses need to improve.
This is all the new way of working, and it's a very exciting time.
There's no doubt about it that my purpose in life has been to use the experiences I have had in order to benefit others.
His humility gives him that insight and relatability with different audiences. If he can help, he will.
The Community Justice Society seeks to work with individuals who, for one reason or another, have come into trouble with the law. If we can change the behavior, we can actually stop them going even further into the criminal justice process. And it has been very, very successful.
What he does is addressing and confronting, combating these systemic harms and these systemic barriers. When you do that work, you are by definition a change maker.
There is a feeling in Nova Scotia, which I applaud, of giving individuals a second chance.
When I first came in, people were leaving Nova Scotia to go to Toronto, to go to Montreal, to go out west. Now people are coming in as a destination to raise families, which is incredible to see.
Nova Scotia is hugely important to me. I will not leave here. I don't need to leave here. Yes, you're right, I can go anywhere in the world, but I don't want to.
Even if you've never been marginalized in your life, you can still be an agent of change. You're very, very necessary. You're very, very important. I want to work with you. And my name is David Devine. Here I am.